it.
A New York Times reader, an NPR fan, a Daily Wire subscriber, or an avid consumer of all things Tucker Carlson. For several months now, there's been no avoiding the subject of Nick Fuentes. And let's be clear, the main reason you're hearing about him is because he's popular. A large number of people, especially young men.
I think Nick Fuentes has been pretty popular recently.
What that says about our society and our culture is the subject of ferocious debate. For many people, it's a grave indictment of an insidious immorality. For others, he's a product of a culture which has turned on its own and left many young people feeling listless.
I think the biggest thing is how Nick Fuentes got really big. I know he was always kind of popular, but I think ever since Charlie Kirk died, I think this definitely made Nick Fuentes blow up a lot more. And I think it's because the idea is that when Charlie Kirk died, a lot of the I think people who really liked him were really. I think a lot of people are kind of like sick of like just being the nice guy, right? And I think Nick Fuentes kind of encourages that to raise the temperature because now it's like, okay, you shot Charlie Kirk, now you get Nick Fuentes now kind of thing. That's why I think now he's getting more popular.
He's either a litmus test for right-wing hypocrisy on free speech or a walking, talking manifestation of where the line should be drawn. And a frankly preposterous amount of airtime has been spent on debating everything from his ideology to his sexuality and whether anyone should actually talk to him at all.
If I were writing a glossary entry on the Streisand effect, I wouldn't put a picture of her next to it. I would put a picture of Nick Fuentes.
They have opted to not do so when it comes to Nazis like Nick Fuentes.
Fuentes takes this guy apart brick by brick. It's a full takedown.
My concern is that people who are a bit more moderate are deeply alarmed by Nick Fuentes.
I was very happy to see that, like, Nick Fuentes really passed that test with flying colors.
That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes.
Imagine Nick Fuentes being this popular. It's pretty crazy. I think a lot of people I think especially people on the right are really, like, they don't really like Nick Fuentes, it clearly looks like. But, man, I don't know. I think Nick Fuentes is more popular than you think.
That's the war. And you get the beef prices down. Not crazy things that Nick Fuentes or these other loons say on social media.
That's true. A lot of people are getting more popular than
about Nick Fuentes on the internet is finally dying down a little bit.
So now we had on this guy, this Fuentes guy, and never
challenged
him.
You should have Nick Fuentes on your show, and you could ask him questions about that.
Oh, yes. Yes, Nick Fuentes needs to go on CNN. That would be so fun to watch.
It doesn't make a lot of sense to spend all this time talking about Nick Fuentes, but not actually to Nick Fuentes. People who say you shouldn't give him a platform overlook the very obvious fact that he already has a platform of his own.
Oh, yeah, he got Rumble.
Bigger than most of the people complaining. And he uses it to speak unchallenged to his many followers. It's on that basis that I've invited him to appear live and uncensored on my platform. And Nick Fuentes, Nick Fuentes, welcome to Uncensored.
What a boss, dude. I like this guy.
Great to be with you.
I don't know you. I don't think we've ever met. You can correct me if that's wrong. I know about you. I know that increasingly people are talking about you in a more mainstream environment than you may be used to.
It's true. He's very popular
so
now.
For those who know nothing about Nick Fuentes, I want this to be an opportunity to get to the real person. I don't know who that person is, but I do want to use this opportunity to get there. I've seen you talk as we prepared for this in exchanges with people and on your show, saying you fear it's going to be very hostile, it's going to be an ambush, all those kind of things. I don't intend it to be overtly hostile. I don't intend to ambush you. I intend it to be an examination of what you said on the record, an examination of what you believe or what you say you believe, and an examination of what your rising popularity says about the state of the conservative movement in America. So those are my goals from this interview. What are your goals? Why are you doing it?
I thought it'd be interesting. And, you know, you've talked a lot about me on your show over the years, and this is the first time you actually extended the invitation. I think it might be the second, actually. I think we talked about doing it during A24 a few years ago, but you've talked a lot about me with the panel, and now you've extended the invitation to talk to me. And I think it'd be interesting for me to maybe clarify some positions and maybe get to know you a little better as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
There is a belief.
I like how Nick Fuentes is kind of going like a really kind of like soft approach. It's like, oh, I thought it'd be great. Like, keep it nice and simple, because I know Pierce, when he asked why are you on here at the show, he kept it very simple. Tried to not have his guard up, but kind of just be like, open arms. I'm just here to hang out, like just here to talk. And so you can totally tell he's coming off very, very casually, which is good. I think that's a very good sign.
That you have two personas. There's one that you roll out now for podcasts and for shows like mine, where you come across as reasonable. And then there's your show on Rumble, where you often come across as having, a very unreasonable view on things.
Oh, he goes ham.
Said about you.
Nick Fuentes knows exactly what he's doing. He is consciously playing this double game.
I like how he has the books in the background. I think about this because Asmon's the one who like brought up with that one guy like Kyle or something like that, and he's like, "Oh, if you have books in the background, it makes you look smart." Oh, by the way, the piano, dude. His background is a piano. I don't know. I just thought it was funny.
As part of a long-term strategy to become popular enough to take the reins of power, at which point he plans to pivot towards the extreme and unpopular policies that he advocates daily on Rumble.
So first of all, what is your response to that?
Well, first of all, I would say that Coleman Hughes is a propagandist. He works for the Free Press, which is run by Barry Weiss. So I think that's
there you go.
Consider the source. And Barry Weiss is a pro-Israel partisan. Free Press is just bought out by CBS for $150 million.
True. I don't like Barry Weiss either.
Or his son David Ellison.
He's kind of
so
annoying.
I think that's coming from a particular point of view. We can't pretend like that's coming from a vacuum or from some fixed position. That's coming from a propaganda outlet that's in favor of Israel. That's first. But second, I would say,
damn, good answer.
He is right about the two personas. And I think that everybody understands this on some level. On my show, I make jokes and I use rhetoric and I'm hyperbolic because for a long time, I had an audience that was small on these like dissident platforms. I was on D Live for many years. A lot of people don't even know what that is.
Nope.
And so I had a small following and we had sort of like an in-group sense of humor and memes and things like that. And you talk about it one way on a freewheeling live stream when I'm by myself and I'm ranting and we make jokes and we play devil's advocate. We play with different positions. But then when you sit down in an interview like this one and people ask me a good faith question, what do you actually believe? Well, then I clarify and I say, well, here I'm not joking. Here I'm not being hyper.
Yeah, and I think overall, I think anyone really do that, to be honest. I don't think anyone has one persona. You can. I mean, for me, I would like to say I have one persona. I'm not really good at being different types of people. I'm kind of just one person overall. So, like, if I was interviewed, I'd probably act the same way I am now than I am, like on stream or whatever kind of thing, right? So I think I'm pretty much the same regardless. So I kind of get what he means, but I don't have two personas. I just fucking go in there and just be myself.
I'm not being rhetorical. I'll tell you precisely what I believe. As far as this idea that I'm going to get power and then turn into Hitler, that just sounds totally insane to me. I'll be honest. It just sounds insane.
Do you have aspirations for political power?
Not really. I think that if I wanted to run for office, I wouldn't say a lot of the things that I say. I don't know that a lot of people would vote for me. I tend to offend everybody, even a lot of people that like me. So no, I'm a truth teller. I don't
know. To be fair, I think if you ran for president, I think he has a really good shot. I'm not gonna lie. I think he might actually have a really good shot. To be honest, I think I feel like a lot of centrist people like him because I think overall, obviously, Democrats don't like him, but neither Republicans, right? But I think a lot of centrist people who are just sick of like just picking sides. I'm just saying, like I think they would go Nick Fuentes.
To tell the truth,
he has my vote.
To do my live stream.
Who is Nick Fuentes? Tell me about your upbringing. I know you grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. Tell me about your early years.
Or early how? Like my childhood or a little bit
later?
Your
childhood, yeah.
Well, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago in LaGrange Park, as you say. My parents are ethnics. My father's half Mexican, half Irish. My mother's Italian. And they both came from a pretty rough upbringing themselves. They both were raised by single mothers, not because of divorce, but because both of their fathers had died. They endured a lot of dysfunction.
Oh, wow.
And I think that's one of the reasons they came together and they related to each other and they wanted to create a normal upbringing for their children. They wanted to have a normal family life. And so they moved out to LaGrange Park away from the city. And they raised me and my sister and really put us first. I think that's a big reason why I tend to have a lot of these family values or Christian values. My mother quit her job and stayed at home to raise us. And so I have a very close relationship with my parents, with my sister. We're a very tight family. And we grew up in a pretty idyllic town. And maybe we can sort of get into a conversation about politics from this. I loved my upbringing. My mom stayed at home. My dad was working. We're in a mostly white suburb in Chicago. Everybody was maybe half Catholic, half
Love
Protestant.
That. That's
It was
funny.
a baseball town. I played baseball for many
Love
years.
how you mentioned the white suburb.
In Chicago, we love our hot dogs. We have our baseball parade and get a hot dog. And so I love where I came from. I love the city. It's a working class city. I love the people here. They're very good, humble, down to earth, decent people. And I guess I had my political, not to jump ahead, but this is a big part of where my political awakening came from. I sort of left this bubble, if you could call it that. When I went to college in 2016, I went to Boston University and I read a lot of things online, and I realized the country does not look like LaGrange Park. It doesn't look like Western Springs or Hinsdale or Elmhurst. It looks very different. The country's undergoing a radical transformation because of immigration. And so I saw that and I said, this is not really a desirable change. I don't like the south side of Chicago or the west side or LA or certain parts of Boston as much as I like where I came from. And I guess that's what made me an American nationalist. I said, I want to preserve my home and the things that are familiar to me and the things I like about my home, what makes it America. So that's a little bit about my background. I don't know where you want to go with that, but
I just like how Nick, he doesn't really hide himself. He just basically explains who he is, easy as that, and then just goes off what he thinks, right? Like, I think that's really good.
My first obvious question is, were your parents immigrants to the United States, or were their parents, or were their grandparents? In other words, at some stage, I presume.
So it seems like Pierce is already trying to get him to the idea, because I know Nick is really, like, anti illegal immigration, but I think it might come off as just immigration. So I think Pierce is trying to get that out of him, like, in a situation where it's like, oh, you know, like, well, your family's immigrants too, so why do you hate immigrants? Something like that.
There were immigrants in your family who came to the US. Is that correct?
There were. I believe my mother was fourth generation and my father was third generation. So their ancestors came here on my mom's side in the 1860s, I believe, the first wave of Italian immigration. My father's ancestors, I think they came around the turn of the century in 1900.
So your view of immigration, and we'll get to the specifics about your views on immigration, are they not affected at all by the fact that if it wasn't for immigration, you wouldn't exist as an American?
Well, I would certainly exist, but like you said, maybe not as an American. Certainly that's influenced in some measure.
Yeah.
But I think that the kind of immigration that we had for a long time in the country, it's different.
And I think it's very different. I think he'll probably mention this real quickly, but I think the idea, again, it goes back to illegal versus legal immigration, right? Now, obviously, maybe back then, in whatever timeline we're fucking, like, a long time ago, yeah, immigration was a little different. It's not like, okay, well, we had green cards and stuff like that, but, you know, just because we had it then doesn't mean we have to follow the same as now, you know? And I think the difference is the migrants that came in today are a lot more than we had back then.
Different than the immigration that we have now. And let's just say for openers, it's different immigrants. They're coming from a different place with a different culture, a different religion. It's not the same as it was. So first, you have a qualitative difference. My ancestors, for the most part, I have 3 European grandparents from Ireland and Italy, 1 from Mexico. They came from Europe. They came from a society where there's a common ancestry, there's a common religion, common civilization. The people that have come in since 65, since Hart-Celler, they're coming from China, India, the Northern Triangle, Mexico, Venezuela. And so first, they're just different people. Secondly, it's a quantitative difference. There's way more, and it's an unceasing, always increasing wave.
Yeah.
For the first 3 or 4 waves of immigration, you would have a major influx of immigrants and then it would stop. And then you'd have another wave and then it would stop. This one, it just keeps going up for 35 years.
Yeah.
And it's too many. So
We got a ton
that's
of
really
people
where I would
coming
draw
in.
the distinction between maybe where I originate from. I would even just simply call that immigration. What this is an invasion. It's a completely different policy.
But you
Oh,
mentioned-
it's insane because yeah, exactly. Like I remember again, I had like friends who are in the. Yep. Oh, hold on a second, guys. Be right back.
Same
But
thing.
you mentioned Mexico in that list, and your father is half Mexican. So
yeah,
I mean, by your criteria, part of the invasion would include your father, presumably, and his immediate descendants who came from Mexico.
I feel like it's a little different though.
Not really true, because when my father's ancestors came here, it was a small fraction of the total immigrants that came from Mexico. I don't believe that we should have zero immigrants forever, or even zero immigrants from non-white countries. But you have to draw the distinction. My father's father, he was here in the...
Yeah, I think he has a point here. Is that like I think he's okay with immigration, but not mass migration, right? Now, for me personally, like I don't mind people coming here, right? Like I always say that I'm okay with legal immigration, but illegal is just it's not part of the books, you know? And like when you have so many people coming in at once, it's just way overwhelming. Like it's crazy because in America, we don't even have enough like money to feed ourselves. So why do you think we want to bring more people in to feed them? And that's again, that's the crazy part where our tax dollars are going to these illegals, and it's like we can barely feed ourselves. So why aren't we doing that, right?
In the 40s and 50s. It was his parents, or I believe either his parents or grandparents, that came here even earlier.
Yeah.
Up until 1965, 90% of the immigrants were coming from Europe. I have no problem with that. If we have 10% of them coming from Mexico or Latin America, maybe that's reasonable, but that's not what it is now. Now you've got 10 million illegals in 4 years under Joe
Ton
Biden.
of millions.
And you got millions more legal immigrants from China, India, Venezuela, El Salvador. And it's so many with no break for assimilation. And they're all from non-white countries. It's transforming what America is. And again, that's the distinction. That's what makes it unacceptable.
I always believe everybody is a product of their environment. Right? I've interviewed thousands of people. I mean, maybe 3, 4, 5,000 people from all different walks of life. But the one common theme I would say is everyone's a product of their environment. And I was reading some stuff about you in the last few days.
I do like his
your
I do like Nick's body language. He's obviously sharing that. Like, he's very interested in the conversation, engaging, which is good.
Podcast.
It's gotta
You
bring that
talked
up.
about your father, Bill Fuentes, and how he wouldn't take the family, including you, to certain restaurants because he believed they were associated with African Americans. We would be deciding where to go to eat, you said.
Nick
What
is
are we
like,
gonna
oh,
do
I
for
know where he's
dinner
getting at
tonight?
that.
It was a running joke. Me and my sister would say Applebee's, and my dad would say we would never eat at Applebee's. Not in a million years should you be caught dead, Fuentes said about Applebee's. Go to a different restaurant, a local restaurant. No Applebee's.
I like
No
Applebee's.
Red Lobster. That is commonly known as black fare.
Oh,
And
wow.
you also shared another story about your family and restaurants. Said before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N word that we're not allowed to say. So my question, based on that anecdote that you say on your own podcast, is: do you think you grew up in a racist environment? That your father was inherently racist, and that thought process moved to you?
Let me hear that again.
Should you be caught dead, Fuentes said about Applebee's. Go to a different restaurant, a local restaurant. No Applebee's, no Red Lobster. That is commonly known as black fare. And you also shared another story about your family and restaurants. Said before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N word that we're not allowed to say.
Contains
So
the
my
N word we're
question,
not allowed to say.
based on that anecdote that you say on your own podcast, is: do you think you grew up in a racist environment? That your father was inherently racist, and that thought process moved to you?
So I think I think the first thing with Pierce is that I know he's coming up with like a question where it's like, yeah, you're right. Nick Fuentes did say that, but I think it sounded like he accused him straight from saying, oh, he's racist, right? He's assuming that his dad is racist, yeah, and then rather if he just said, what do you think about that, right? I think that gives Nick Fuentes more room to be able to explain himself. But when you say, "Oh, he's straight out racist," that's already accusing him. Now maybe he's racist. I don't fucking know. But like, we'll see what he says right here.
Say it's a new low. I've been attacked for being a
Oh, here we go.
racist many times, but to attack my father, to attack my parents based on anecdotes.
So it already shows that Nick Fuentes is getting offended by it because he thinks that he's calling his dad a racist. But obviously this might be a strategy that he's using.
I'd say that's sort of a new low.
Hang on, it's your anecdote.
Yeah, but he's not here to defend himself.
You are.
And my parents are.
You told the story.
And I will. And I'll
I'm
defend
not trying
them.
to ambush you. As I said,
he is right about that, though. He did tell the story. Now, again, I don't, again, obviously he could have worded it a little differently. But yeah, no, he did tell the story, so he's not really, he's not wrong, technically.
Let's start, Nick, to be clear.
No, it's not an ambush.
Nick, to be clear,
I think
I'm
everybody
not
understands.
ambushing you. I'm literally reading an anecdote that you revealed on your podcast. It's you that's put it in the public domain.
I know.
I'm simply asking you whether my assessment of that, which is that your father didn't want to take you to certain restaurants because of what you refer to as, they were commonly known as black fare, whether that attitude to African Americans.
Yeah, and that's why he shouldn't have said, "Oh yeah, is your dad racist?" Something like that. He should have just been like, "Okay, what do you think of what you said? Oh, what he said, right?" Rather than be like, "Oh, okay, well, he's racist."
It's permeated to you. It's a reasonable question.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think everybody knows what that is, but I'll address it. I'll engage with it, and I'll defend my father from the charge of racism.
Sure.
No, my parents are not racist, and they've never been racist. I'll tell you about my parents. They used to have a school in Chicago in the South Loop where they instructed people on how to shoot firearms. It was a security school.
Wow.
And most of the clients were black. And I believe actually one of their clients was Larry Hoover's son at one point, sort of a funny story. And so most of their clients would come in from the south side of Chicago. My grandmother, she grew up in the projects in the city. And so my family, being in Chicago, being ethnics, being Italian, Irish, Mexican, and the west side on Taylor Street, all over the city. My family for many generations have lived near and around black people. And look, my views about black people and their views about black people are shaped with experiences with black people. And what they will tell you, what my parents would say if they were here, is that for many, many years, the older generations of black people were very respectful, very humble, very decent. In fact, my grandma used to have an anecdote. She grew up in a lot of dysfunction. Her mother was mentally ill, and they would be having dinner in the projects, and there'd be so much chaos and dysfunction and disagreement and fighting. And she would look across the way out the window at a black family in the other apartment, and they'd be holding hands around the table saying grace. And this is sort of the culture that used to prevail. But now what you have in the city is that there's no accountability for the black people. And now Chicago has become a complete dump because these teenagers go out and they take over the city. They call them teen takeovers.
Yeah, and I think overall what he's talking about is like back then, and I guess in terms of the black people specifically, back in the day, it seemed like a lot more relaxed. It seemed like a certain type of culture. But nowadays, again, there's a ton of crime and the lack of accountability, as you guys see now, on Twitter or, anywhere you see now, is that like there's always some kind of crime going on and no one gets arrested for it, or they're in jail and back out in the streets and then back again. It's like these people get arrested like 16 times, but nothing happens, right? And that's the lack of accountability. I think that's what Nick Fuentes is referring to, because like at the end of the day, it's like a long time ago, it was fine, with crime, but now it's like it's gone like heavily crazy now. And like again, like we make these jokes that like, oh yeah, Chicago hood, and like I made a video on like the Gundam store opening of Chicago of all places. And I'm like, dude, Chicago's cooked, man. Like Gundam is cooked over. Like people are gonna be robbing Gunpla, dude. And we make these jokes, but it's real. This shit happens, and it's really scary. Like even from like the other day, I was in LA, downtown LA, like celebrating my wife's birthday. Like I remember back in like 2015, I felt safe like walking around at night in downtown LA. Surprisingly enough, right? But now I go down there, I didn't feel safe. Like I was extra cautious. Like people were like drugged out or they looked sketchy. And I'm like, this not used to be like this, right? And I can imagine being, in Chicago. It's like, I wouldn't want to walk around at night, dude. That's fucking terrifying,
That's the euphemism for it. They're teenagers, but they all come from the same neighborhood. They drive up there. and they mug people and attack people and they destroy cars and destroy
Yeah,
shops.
I've seen a lot of videos of that, and you know, even a lot of my Asian, you know, I guess, you know, the Asian people are getting robbed as well. It's insane.
We had the Festival of Lights a couple of weeks ago. It's supposed to be a family event. And they light up the trees and they, you know, there's a big parade. I was in the parade one year and you had a bunch of black people there shooting each other. 7 people shot, a 14-year-old killed in the Magnificent Mile. And I know there's a lot of black people that feel the same way about this. They say,
Yeah, and the funny thing is that like black on black crime is never addressed or shown because the media wants to have this narrative where it's like, oh, white people kill black people all the time, and I think that's what he's talking about. There's not enough black on black crime that's being reported, or unless you have to go on X to find out. Which the crazy thing is enough. That's where we find most of our information is through X. Like we see a lot of stuff in terms of crime that we have to, like that Ukrainian girl who got stabbed. We found out because of X. We didn't find it on the media, and honestly, if we didn't have X, we would have never figured out what happened. We have never known. That's the scary thing, is that we would have never known that happened if we didn't have X. That's the scary thing to think about, right? And you know what he's talking about is that, yeah, like there's a lot of crime that happens that's not really reported. And again, a lot of black people themselves, they don't even like it, right? They're trying to get shit out. Like I remember, like when they're trying to bring in the National Guard to Chicago or ICE, like everyone's like, all the black people were like, dude, please come, please. And like they don't even like their mayors because their mayors are trash and the governor is terrible. So like it's insane right now. It's going on in Chicago or Illinois, I guess technically.
hey, we've lost control of the city and we're looking for accountability. We have a lot of black people that are always outraged about racism, outraged about attitudes from white people, but they're never ashamed of some of these behaviors, never ashamed of some of the things that go on. And that's why I think there's a lot of negative attitudes these days. And so,
yeah, and again, it goes back to the thing. It's like, you know, like, oh, well, you play the victim card when it's necessary, but when you're, you know, when you're causing crime, oh, but you say, oh, you're arresting me because you're racist, right? It's the whole race card thing.
you know, again, I think those attitudes, you say I'm a product of my environment. I am. And so are my parents and my grandparents. Unlike you, because you're not even American, in Chicago, we have to live in a big, diverse city where there's a lot of different kinds of people. And I think anybody in Chicago will tell you the same.
I live in London. It's one of the biggest and most diverse cities in the world.
But it's not the same.
Well, actually, it's a big, diverse city. The only difference is we don't have the gun violence because we don't have guns. That's a whole different story. I don't want to get into that with you. I have got into that before in America.
You got a knife problem. You got sword problems.
We have problems with
Aladdin.
We have.
Wait, did he say Aladdin? He got a lot. Yeah. So right now in London, I mean, from what I've heard, there's like a ton of Muslim illegal immigrants over there, and they're doing some crazy shit over there. And again, like, no, yeah, there's no guns, but people are getting pushed to getting. Like, it's scary from what I've seen the videos. And now, whether you can say that's a small percentage or not, it's happening, right? And that's the thing that we need to understand. It's like, yeah, so maybe it's a few times. Like, people say, oh, well, it's only happening, like, you know, a little bit, right? But it's happening, right? I mean, I think that's what's important, that it's the idea that it's happening, rather than feel like, oh, well, it's just some crime. I mean, there should be any crime. Isn't that what we should strive for, is not have crime at all, you know?
Problems with violent crime. I make no pretense of it. So the idea that somehow I'm cosseted in London because I'm not in Chicago.
I didn't say that.
Well, you kind of implied it, but I guess my point about...
Oh, no, he definitely implied it. I think he implied it for sure.
I'm not saying you are a product of your environment. I'm saying most people are in some capacity. Mm-hmm. When I read that anecdote, which, just to remind you, it's not something I have put out there. You told this story, right? And you said that...
You said this. We're looping. You said this already.
No, but you haven't really directly... I think responded to it, which is whether your father would not take you to certain restaurant chains because he associated them with black Americans. Is that true?
No, well, see here, if you're in America, you would say that Olive Garden is not real Italian food. Applebee's, TGI Fridays, and stuff is a load of crap. My dad was just a food snob, but no, it's got nothing to do with that. My best friend in first grade was a black guy. We're not a racist family. So,
okay, so when you told the story, I'm just curious. So when you told that anecdote, which clearly on the face of it is racist, right? You're basically saying your father made racist decisions about where you would go as a family to eat. Are you saying, well, I'm just going to ask you a question. Are you saying that when you told that story, you didn't mean to infer that he was racist? And do you understand why when somebody like me reads that anecdote for the first time, as I did this week, I reach a different conclusion?
Well, I understand what you're doing, which is a sort of making of a murderer. How did he become racist? Well, his father didn't eat an Olive Garden because he said that's not real Italian food. Hang on,
I can see what he said.
What's with the interruptions? Can I explain?
I'm literally reminding you of something you said on your show, which led me to conclude a certain thing. If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah, it was said in jest as a humorous anecdote, and now you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is his parents are racist. He comes from a long line of racists. And I think everybody knows my parents are boomers. And these people come, well, you're a boomer, I guess, too. In a way,
60.
right? You were born in what, 19? Yeah. So you're a boomer also. Or maybe you're a Gen Xer. I suppose it's sort of on the cusp. But
you're a boomer too.
Anecdote. These are kind of the attitudes of baby boomers in society, but you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is you're a product of your environment. Your dad's racist because of this joke. Now you're a racist. And I don't think that's a fair characterization.
Okay. People can make their own minds up. They can go back and listen to you say it. I mean, the beauty of what I'm going to talk to you about.
I think what he means is like it goes back to like when he asked that question, it's not he didn't he asked the question, but he immediately went, well, your dad's racist. What do you think about that, right? Like rather than be like, okay, well, this is what your dad said. What do you think about it, right? I think it's the context when he said you basically assumed that his dad was racist, right? And that's when Nick was like, okay, we can't call my dad a racist, right?
Is that almost all of it is just going to be reminding you what you have said and asking you what you meant. Your position about that story.
Yeah, if he said what you meant, but because he said the word racist, like he said, oh, your dad was racist, that's when it was kind of like, okay, well, did you really mean to ask him what he meant, or you're just trying to say, oh, are you racist or not, right?
It was a joke, okay? I want to come to something else you said. This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks. Let's just take a listen.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
Okay.
Oh, geez.
Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
So this is good. So at least with Pierce, he said, what would you clarify there? I think that's good. He didn't assume anything. He didn't go like, oh, by the way, what did you know about that racist thing? Like he just went, what do you clarify? So I think that was good for Pierce.
All true. That's 100%
Boom.
true.
He's just like,
everything I said in that clip is true.
Yep.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Yeah. Yes.
But all of them?
No, for the most.
Not all of them. I'd say obviously the black ones who do crime. And I wouldn't even say just blacks, right? I would say Asians, whites, anyone who's committed crime. Oh yeah, put them in jail. I think overall, but I think what he's saying is the statistics that black on black or black crime tends to be higher from, I think what I've heard is like, like there's 15% in the US, but over 50% of them crime. So I think he's just talking about in terms of statistic wise. But yeah, no, I think whether it's black, whites, Asians, if you commit crime, man, you're going to jail. Or fuck, maybe the death penalty. I mean, that'll be faster, right?
Most part.
What does the most part mean? What percentage of American blacks would you like to see in prison?
Whatever the percentages of the murderers. I think it's 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder in their lifetime. So maybe let's say that 5%.
Yep.
Oh, so you're talking about black people who murder people.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
There you go.
But you didn't say that.
That's
you just said
problem.
blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
It's true.
You didn't clarify that you were talking about black murderers.
Right. No, you're right. That's a good addition to that. That's a great point.
You think it's funny or?
I mean, Nick doesn't give a shit, but yeah, no, I think at least he said, oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I do. I think it's hilarious. I think it's totally true.
Do you think a black American would find it funny? You think that blacks should be imprisoned for the most part?
Black.
It's funny, surprising enough, they do. A lot do.
Fans. I get high fives all the time. They say
it's very true. A ton of black people do.
They agree with me, and you want to know why? Here's the difference. Black people are the most victimized by other black people. You think black people want to live in the hood and the ghetto and get shot all the time? That's what happens in the south side of Chicago.
Yep.
You should come here. I'll take you there. We could go to Garfield
My
Park. We
son
could
went
go
to
to
Chicago
Inglewood.
University for a year, actually, several years ago.
Yeah, that's a bubble. That's a bubble. You think
Yeah.
you're in Chicago and Hyde Park? You don't know Chicago. Go a little bit west. See what it's like over there.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll tell you, black people agree with me because they're tired of it too. And maybe not
It's
most
true.
of them, but a lot of them agree with what I say.
I always see these people, these black people always go like, man, I'm so black fatigue. And these are black people saying it too, so it's kind of funny. I have friends who say the same thing.
About that because they know how it is. That's why the first thing they do when they make a little bit of money is they go and leave to another neighborhood.
Okay, so what was
Sure. Stick
just remind
around.
me again the percentage of black men who commit murder in America. What was the percentage you gave me?
It's 1 in 20. 1 in 20.
It's 1 in 100.
No, it's 1 in 20.
No. Less than 1 in 100
No, it's not.
black US
Nope.
men commit murder. That's the most up-to-date crime statistics in America.
That's not true. I've seen other statistics. They say 1 in
have?
20 will eventually commit a murder.
So
I have.
your rate means that you're saying that 5
I use
times
Grok.
as many black men commit murder as the official crime statistics say.
Yeah, there's a report, I believe, on X by Data Hazard. I'll have to go and double check that for you. But yes, there's some pretty shocking evidence that says that it's far more alarming than you would think.
I wouldn't be surprised.
You would accept that the official crime statistics are 1 in 100, or you wouldn't accept that statistic?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but I've seen other evidence. Like I said, Data Hazard on X, I believe, produced a report about a year ago. It said 1 in 20. But I mean, whether it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 100, that's a lot of people, Piers.
It's
I
still
mean,
bad
that's
either
no
way.
problem.
People commit murder too.
Yeah, I think it's still bad either way.
Well, they do, don't they?
Okay, but it's about proportionality. I mean, white people are 65% of the population, blacks are 13%.
Yeah.
And I think anybody would tell you that more black people proportionally commit violent crime than white people, and people vote with their feet. People would rather pay a much higher property tax.
Most mass
What's with the
shootings-
interruptions?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate
I'm
that.
sorry.
You know, you
Oh, my
look
bad.
at in Chicago, in New York, these neighborhoods are so stratified. People would rather pay a high tax rate. They'd rather pay a much higher property value to live in a less diverse, less black neighborhood because they don't want to live around the violence. And I think that when you look at even on the public transit, the subway, the blue line, you know, people don't want to go there because they know who occupies and menaces the
I think a very good question to ask some people is that, like, okay, like, I feel like a fun question to ask some random people on the street, be like, where would you rather live, a black neighborhood or a white neighborhood? I think that'd be a fun question to ask.
public transit. It is these people like Daniel Penny had to deal with. It's people like Irina Zarutska had to deal with. And,
Oh, yeah.
And that's just the uncomfortable reality.
That's the sad part.
You've also said you don't want to live near black people. Let's take a listen to this clip.
I'm a new generation of white person. I'm not living around blacks. Sorry. You know, I want white kids, and I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry. It's racial for me.
Oh, shit.
And call me racist. Oh, very Christian of you. I don't give a fuck.
I mean,
He's
keep
gonna be
it
like,
clearer,
fuck
really.
yeah, right. He's gonna say
Unless
that
you
much.
want to say that's another of your jokes, but you're
No, he's
basically
serious.
saying, yeah, I'm a racist, aren't you?
Well, he's saying, call me racist.
Yeah,
Want
I'm
to.
fine with that.
Boo.
You're fine with saying you're a racist.
Yeah, he doesn't give a shit.
Totally. I think everybody's racist.
I agree. I think everyone's racist at some extent. Like say example, even for the Asian community, every Asian, dude, we are racist. Fuck, I already know that for sure, for a fact. And a lot of the Asian like cultures and countries, dude, they all hate each other. We all hate each other. We're all racist in some kind of way. And I think he's so like degaff about it because I think the generation now these days has been, especially the media, always keeps calling people racist. Like a lot of people who are centrists, like they would call Nazis, racist, fascist, whatever. I think the problem is now we're so sick of being called that. If you call us that, it doesn't have any effect. So yeah, I think Nick Fuentes right here is like, you're being racist? Sure, I don't care. Yeah, whatever. Like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it's gonna get to a point where, you know, when we actually get racist people, when it actually happens, when we actually get a legit Hitler, we're not gonna say shit about it because it's like, okay, whatever. No.
I think everybody, if we're being honest, is racist.
Yeah,
I think
everyone is
everybody-
racist.
The only people that aren't racist or pretend not to
And that's what I'm saying. Like, when you ask the question, you literally ask any person, say, which neighborhood would you like to live in, black or white? That's how you can tell.
be our white people to their detriment. Everybody else is racist.
But you spent earlier in the interview, you went really got aggrieved at the idea that your father was a racist. You wanted to make emphatically
because
sure
my father's
he's not.
because my father doesn't share my same views on that.
So he's the exception to the everyone's a racist.
Well, everybody's a little bit racist.
I think I think in the end of the day, it's like everyone has a little racism in them. Now, it doesn't mean like, oh yeah, well because you're black, I'm gonna kill you, right? That I don't think that's the racism he's talking about. I think the racism where it's like there's some kind of judging of their skin color, but not to like, oh, in terms of, oh, I hate you because of it. But it's more like an example, right? Let's just say like for an example, you'll see like a person, right? Let's just say, I don't know, I'll say like, oh, well, you're Asian, so you must be smart, right? Then they can be like, okay, well, that's a little racist of you. But it's not like, oh my god, I hate this guy because he's Asian, right? Or like, oh my god, here's a black guy on the street, I'm a little scared, right? Yeah, I'm a little racist on that, but that doesn't mean like, oh my god, like I hate this person. It's just like you're a little cautious because of your emotions and what you learned, the way you think. It just happens that way, right? Now, are you like a complete like KKK? No, I mean I don't think so. But overall, it's just like there's gonna be a little bit alert somehow deep down inside.
You're right. So maybe everybody. The difference is you're attacking my father. He
I'm
could get fired from his job.
I'm not attacking your father.
You are.
No, I'm not. I don't know your father. And to be clear, I have no knowledge about him at all.
Well, then let's leave him out of it. Let's leave him out of it if you don't know him.
Hang on, Nick. You put that story into the public domain on your show. I'm simply reminding you of what you told everybody, millions of people, about your father. If you now want to retract it, fine. If you want to say it was a joke, which is what your position was earlier, fine. But I'm allowed to put to you things you've said publicly. That's not unfair. That's not me targeting your father. You put that story about him out
You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing.
I'm asking you about a pretty shocking anecdote, which
I mean, Pierce is right about that. Like he is basically just saying what you said, right? So I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
To me, looked like you were saying your father made decisions about where you as a family would eat based on skin color of people who worked at these places. If you say, or use them, if you say that is not what you meant, that's fine. You can respond any way you like. But the idea I can't ask you about it without you saying I'm attacking your father is ridiculous.
Well, you are, and you know what you're doing. And there's a political culture in America where if you have the wrong views, you get fired from your job. And my father,
I think Nick is getting a little bit in terms of like he's taking a little personally because, like I said, like you did mention it if that was the case, right? And again, I don't know, I didn't watch the clip, but apparently you did, right? So I think it's a little personal. So I wouldn't pull that too much that card.
Has a job, and if you go on here and say you charge him with racism or something, and I'm put in a position where I don't look like I'm sticking to my guns if I don't say my father's a racist, you're putting him in jeopardy, and he's not here to defend himself or explain his views. And it's very low, and I think you know exactly what you're doing, and people can see what you're doing. I'll defend my views, and I think that, so let's leave him out of it. Let's just not talk about my father because my father isn't here. I'm here.
Okay, well,
I'll
then do you accept that you shouldn't
talk? I'll defend the anecdote.
Listen, that's fine. But then do you accept you shouldn't talk about your father on your show? And you shouldn't tell...
Absolutely not. Absolutely
not. So
not.
it's fine for you to put a story out there which would make most people who listened to that story or watched it at the time on your show conclude that he was racist. It's fine for you to do that. But if I then ask you about it, I'm the one who's being unfair and I've crossed a line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you're being malicious.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Yep.
Listen, people are watching this live. They can draw their own conclusions about what I just did.
And they will.
Yeah, and I'm sure afterwards, by the way, you'll say, he ambushed me with your own words. With your own words.
He wouldn't do that. I don't think Nick gives a care about that. Like, I think now if he was a liberal, maybe.
That's a little presumptuous. I'm not going to say it's an ambush, but I think that's a low blow. And I think you know what you're doing, and that's fine. You're a tabloid journalist. I expected that. I don't think it's an ambush because I knew it would be like this. And people will see what you're doing, and I think they'll say it's low. But as far as you want to talk about racism,
I do.
Let's talk about racism.
Okay,
let's leave my dad out of it.
Look, you've admitted you're a racist, correct?
Yes.
Like, I'm a racist.
Okay.
Own it.
Okay, that's fine. You're perfectly
I think we all have a little racism
in a free democratic society to stare down the barrel of his camera and tell me you're a racist. People can judge you accordingly. Many people who have assumed that you're racist will now have heard it from your own lips. That's fine.
There you go.
That's the point. The point of this interview is to go over the things you've said, which have led people to reach conclusions about you, and to ascertain whether those conclusions are fair and reasonable or not. That's it. So I want to play you another clip. This is what
There
you
you
talk
go.
about why white people are justified in being racist. Let's take a listen to this.
First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
Do you stand by
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So white people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them.
Absolutely. They would be wise.
Why?
Because it's a lose-lose proposition. If you're Irina Zarutska and you don't walk the other way, you get stabbed to death and you die. If you're somebody else and you walk on the subway and you stand near a black person or something, maybe it's fine. It's a lose-lose proposition. So no, I think that white people have been beaten into submission, that we're afraid to tell the truth about it. And the truth is that when you go into these major cities like New York or Chicago, I believe she was in North Carolina, there is a menace, which is young, black, adolescent men. They're extremely violent.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because of this whole crime thing, it does make a lot of black people look bad who are, well, here's what I can say is that, like, I feel like you can tell the difference between of who's actually like sketchy and who's not sketchy. I feel like I've seen a ton of black people out there who just, I can literally go like, okay, well, I don't feel harmful by this black person, right? But when you look at some criminal black person, yeah, you can tell there's something wrong with them, and you can go base it off that, right? And I think that's what he means. It's the ones who just are just straight criminals, right? And I think it goes back to the idea where there's so much crime that's happening in these cities, and they just keep getting released. Like, a lot of these criminals are at least released like 5+ times. It's insane. So I think he's talking about those ones.
And we have been told that we have to pretend like they are every other person. We have to be colorblind to that.
Yeah, and then what happens is they'll go like, oh, well, like, these people are just people. They're looking for a better life. But you realize that these people are just straight up criminals. Like, they're really bad people.
And we're supposed to go and be in the midst of all this danger. And I think that at this point, it's gotten out of control. You look at the BLM movement, they said that the reason that black people, are violent, or the reason there's crime, is because of police brutality, or redlining, or all these other things.
Yeah, and that was the thing when Jasmine Crockett said. She was like, she saying something so stupid. It was like, just because you're a criminal doesn't make, it was like, just because you committed a crime doesn't make you a criminal. I was like, what kind of fucking logic is that? And that's when people are really sick of the shit, where it's like they're trying to make up excuses for anyone that's like black who commits a crime. It's like, dude, you committed the crime. Like, you're a criminal. That's it. I'm sorry. But yeah, no, I think that's what he's talking about, is that these people put up these excuses for these criminals.
He said we need to get rid of the police. We need to defund them. And a lot of cities did. A lot of cities like Chicago, for example, the police changed the rules of engagement. They don't chase them. It's not a felony if you steal a certain amount of merchandise.
Oh yeah, and because of the defunding, the cops don't do as much stuff. It's the same thing as California. Like, there's so much shit that cops now in California don't do, especially in LA. Like, if someone were to hit you in LA, they can be like, oh, well, it wasn't a hard enough hit. Or they'll be like something like, oh, well, it wasn't long enough, kind of thing. It's really stupid.
They won't chase them on foot. And now the city's totally up for grabs. And now, whether you're in the Gold Coast, or whether you're on the Mag Mile, or you're in the worst neighborhoods in the city, you might get shot, you might get mugged, someone might run up on you. And I tell my followers, it is better to be perceived as racist or racist and walk the other way and maybe keep your life, than to say, I'm a good anti-racist. I don't mind that this person's making me uncomfortable. Maybe he's looking a little...
That's very true. No, I agree with that. Like, it's better to judge. Like, I used to be kind of like, oh, well, I kind of felt the same way. I was like, oh, well, everyone deserves a chance, right? But as I got older, I start to realize, I'm like, dude, your life is more important than, like, just to be a goody-goody tissue, right? Like, again, like the other day when I was walking with my wife, in LA, I was very cautious. I made sure she was safe. I, made sure when there's a weird guy on the right hand or left hand side, I would switch with her in that position. So if something were to happen, then I would get hit, right? So like I was very cautious that day, like just making sure that she was safe. And imagine if I did not do that, if I was not cautious. And I think this is what Nick means, is that like you gotta be somewhat cautious what you're doing. And if you're called a racist for doing that, then so be it, right? But hey, guess what? You made that choice of being cautious, and you could have lost a life that day, but you didn't because you took the judgment to make sure that you know you made that assumption that hey, they might be something wrong with him, right? That's what I feel like. So yeah, I think he's completely right.
Froggy, I'm going to sit down because I'm a good person and get stabbed, mugged, whatever. And by the way, this is a strategy. They call it the friendly stranger. There's a crew of them. They do this in Chicago. They stand outside bars, black people. They approach strangers. It's a robbery crew, and they pretend to be a friendly stranger, and then they mug them.
That's
and stupid
scary.
white people say, "Oh, hi, yeah, nice to meet you." You know, they grin, they laugh, they put up with the nonsense, and then they get mugged, or worse. Sometimes they get executed. And so, as a white person,
how do you feel about mass shootings at school?
I think they're bad.
Who do you think commits the vast majority of the mass shootings?
I'm sure it's
schools?
white people.
Yeah, white people, right?
So how do you feel about that?
See, at least he said, "How do you feel about that?" He didn't say anything else, but I think that was good.
I think that white people do more antisocial violence. I think black people participate in more gang violence. I think that's the difference.
What's the difference to the victims?
There's no difference to the victim, but it's a different kind of crime, and it's a different proportion also. Do you know what percentage of white people are school shooters?
I know that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools in America this century were perpetrated by young white men. And I'm just
what proportion of what proportion?
I'm curious.
What proportion?
I'm curious whether your advice would be to people who have kids in
Wait,
these
is my
schools.
mic working?
Should they
what proportion?
should they avoid white people at school? Should people with the kids at school avoid young white men at school?
No.
Okay.
Do you know what per capita means? Do you know proportionality? There are more black people proportionally that engage in violent crime or are involved in gangs, especially in these major cities, than there are white people.
So Pierce basically saying like it doesn't matter what color skin you are, if you commit crime, you commit the crime, which I get, right? But at the same time, there is statistics of like who commits more crime. It's like it's kind of like this, like what are the percentages of seeing Asians committing crime, right? It's very, very low. Now I'm sure there is, but you don't hear about it, right? Or again, it's not reported, or again, it doesn't exist, right? That's the one thing. So it's like I think that's what Nick is trying to say, is like there is a type of race according to statistics that commit a certain amount of crimes for different stuff, right? Like you said, like gang crime, or anti-school is more like white people
that are school shooters.
Which is true though,
compared to the entire white population, and everybody understands that.
Two-thirds of mass shootings at school perpetrated by white people.
But what proportion of white men commit school shootings? That's the question.
I've just told you. It's 60-65% of school shootings by white people.
You're telling me what proportion of school shootings are committed by white people. I'm saying what proportion of white people have committed school shootings. Are you playing dumb, or are you just not that smart?
What difference does that make to the children lying dead on the ground?
See, now you want to jump on the victims. The difference is you're asking, would you fear white people or black people? And that's the difference. The difference is in terms
what I'm saying to you is by
probability.
your logic, if we now have agreed that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools are committed by white people and predominantly young white men, then presumably your advice would be to avoid young white men because they perpetrate these massacres. But it won't be because they're white, right?
So are you playing dumb, or are you actually dumb?
Maybe
it's
I'm
about
dumb.
proportionality.
Maybe I'm dumb.
You are because you're, well, I don't think you are dumb. I think you're smart actually, but you're deliberately avoiding per capita.
That's smart.
And everybody
that's
knows that's the difference. What proportion of white men are school shooters? It's probably 0.00001%.
It's like Asians, right? It's literally 0.0000001% for Asians. Like I think there was literally only like one like shooting from an Asian, which was again it was the Virginia Tech guy, right? Maybe there's another one I can't remember on top of my head, but yeah, the percentage is very, very low.
Proportion of black men.
But to be fair, there is technically, I'm sure there's a lot of Asian crime, but we just don't hear about it, right?
And have committed violent crimes. It's probably like 5%. Like I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's very high. And I would add to that, even as it concerns schools, why do you think parents pay a super high property tax to live in a school district where there's white people? Because they know that if they go to the black school, it's going to be the Bloods and the Crips. It's going to be gangs. It's going to be
again, I think it's very right. Like, why else would you go pay for like a private school or live in a better area, right? Because you don't want to deal with that shit.
You know, you talk about school shootings. Nobody talks about all the school shootings.
I'm gonna use the restroom real quickly. Be right back.
That are committed by gangbangers in and around the school, and all the other violence that's associated with that. I mean, these schools in the South Side of Chicago. You know, it's just not.
I have an
livable.
answer. I have
It's
an
not
answer
workable.
for you, Nick. So the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings is actually the same for black and white.
For white people, the proportion of
the proportion
again,
of the
are you
population.
hearing it? No.
So you see,
What's
I
the
think the trouble with your
proportion?
statistics is a lot of them don't bear much scrutiny. We have a bunch of fact checkers checking all this in real time because you do have a tendency to just come out with a lot of old baloney. And when you say, you know,
Okay,
well, it's true. And when you're confronted
What-
with
but you're-
when you're
wait,
confronted
what's
with
the
reality,
figure?
you don't like it.
What's the figure? What proportion of white people have committed school shootings? With white people as the denominator and white people that have committed school shootings as the numerator, what's that percentage?
For both black and whites, the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings generally is about the same.
No,
Really?
tell me the number, and then what
yet,
is?
He's waiting for the number.
And yet, your
Okay.
the only focus of your attention is the black shootings, the black crime. You don't want to live around black
I can't wait
people.
to see the
You
comments
want
of
to
this.
Avoid black people.
Actually, I want to see
You
the
don't want
comments right now. Let's look.
interracial marriages or relationships.
Let me pull up the clip real quickly. Hope I don't start over. Oh, thank God. Let's see this. I want to see the comments right now. I just want to see what people are saying. Oh, I wish I had that number where I could see like the negatives or whatever, or the positives and the thumbs up.
No.
And yet-
Tell me
Here's
the number,
playing-
and then
So you go. Pierce playing Nick's greatest hits, and Nick sitting back like Kobe watching his own highlights.
And
what
yet,
is?
I'm in the UK and got arrested for watching this.
Focus of
That's
your
funny.
attention
Why does Pierce
is
own a
the
multi-million
black
dollar mansion in Beverly
shootings,
Hills when Compton
the
is
black
available?
crime.
Right?
You don't want to live
See,
around.
even then already, like now, whether this is true or not, it's like, then why don't you live in Compton, right? And I think that's a lot of things that people don't understand. It's like, okay, you're going like saying this stuff where it's like, oh yeah, well, black people are are safer or whatever. Okay, why don't you live there, right? But no one does because they know. Let's see, Pierce absolutely getting slapped around in the comment section. Jeez, Pierce would never park his car in the hood. Yo, 100% he wouldn't. I don't think anyone would. Like not being offended by being called racist really stalked Pierce. That's funny.
Black people. You want to avoid black people. You don't want interracial marriages or relationships that may produce black people. And yet, when I point out to you that there are many parts of crime in America where actually there's a majority of white people that perpetrate them, you don't care. You don't have any interest in that. It doesn't exercise your mind. Maybe because you don't.
no one's
maybe 'cause
buying
you don't
this.
have
This
kids.
argument lost. No one is buying this.
I mean, he does have a point, dude. It's like, yeah, right. When there's white crime, you don't see Nick talking about it, right? I don't think he talks about it, but it's true. We don't talk about it. Like, even for me, like, if I see some Asian crime, I don't really talk about it either because then the percentage is so low. I mean, I'd love to know, but actually, that's not true. I do report some stupid, like, Asian people doing some stupid things, so never mind.
Everybody understands per capita, and people can even see what you race ahead and say, well, we're comparing the proportion of white and black school shooters. I said, no, compare the proportion of school shooters that are white versus violent criminals that are black, because that was the basis of the monologue, is that you're very likely, if you encounter black people or a young black man in the city, that you're going to be the victim of a violent crime, of a robbery, a mugging, a car theft, a carjacking, or a murder.
But again, it is true though. Like we hear a lot about these black people, but the problem is when we're calling it out, we're considered racist, right? And notice the news never covers it when it's a black person, or they twist the words where it's like innocent black guy, something like that. And it's like this guy, like the Carmelo Anthony, for example, like CNN covered They made it look like Carmelo Anthony was a hero, which was wild to me. And this is the guy who stabbed a kid, and of course he happened to be white. Stabbed a kid, and then apparently there's no footage coming out. It's so weird. And guess what? This Carmelo Anthony guy raised GoFundMe money to live in like a mansion or something like that. It was so bizarre and crazy that people are actually buying this. And I think this is why everyone in the world is so sick of this stuff and being so when you call them racist, it just fires them up even more.
That's the difference, and it's about proportionality. And everybody sees past that because we all live in reality. You want to talk about product of your environment? People that live in New York, Chicago, LA, we live in reality. We live in this environment, and we see what it's like. And the threat, the danger, in terms of probability, is not, it's not even comparable. And I would add, I would say this to your point. If you're in a high school and truly, if you see a white person who looks like a little autistic, he's got the SSRI stare and he reaches for a backpack, people joke and say, run. Similarly, if you see a jalopy pulling up with a bunch of black people in it and they got their pants around the ankles, you're going to run also. And I'm saying the same thing. The difference is the latter happens much more often.
Yeah, and like I said, like when you see something sketchy about that person, and it doesn't have to be blacks, it can be like anyone, right? You want to run or at least dodge and avoid it. Like the same thing when I was in LA. When I saw something sketchy, it wasn't just blacks. It was like all types of people, Mexicans, whites, like anyone that looked sketchy to me, I was like, nope, I'm gonna walk away. Right? Does that make me racist? Maybe a little bit racist because you're judging by a certain color. Maybe, but I'm also judging by their appearance, and by looking at their appearance, I'm like, oh shoot, this guy looks sketchy.
It's much more common. In Chicago, there's like 10,000 carjackings and car thefts every day. It's in the thousands. It happens all the time. How many mass shootings committed by autistic SSRI white people? I don't even know. I mean, it's probably in the single digits in the last decade in this city. That's the difference, and everybody knows that. But you're really just trying to carry water for liberal ideology. It's an ideological position.
No, I'm really not. I can absolutely say, yes, there is way too much black on black crime, for example, involving guns in Chicago.
And black on white also.
Yes, but there is way too much gun violence in Chicago, right? I mean, it's...
Yeah.
Well, again, with the black on black crime, it's never talked about because it doesn't fit the narrative, right?
It's indisputable. I've got no problem saying that. The difference is I don't then lead myself into a thought process where I have to avoid all black people in case they shoot me. And you've already conceded that you are a racist. So when people hear you then say, I don't want to be living anywhere near black people, they already have heard you say, I'm a racist. So they assume you're doing that because of people's skin color. I don't think you would probably dispute that, right?
It's really funny because I really do think like a lot of black people don't even want to be around black people. I don't know. Sometimes I feel that way.
Well, you're separating two different things. The monologue, when I said I don't want to live around black people, that was after Irina Zarutska got shot, and it's true. I mean, they are a largely in this city in Chicago, the South Side, the West Side, huge criminal population, and I don't want to live anywhere near it. And I do. I want to live in a white neighborhood. I think that.
I mean, isn't Nick
desirable?
too?
I think even black people.
Again, Nick, you're perfectly entitled to that view. But when you have obviously prefaced all this by saying, I am a racist, unashamedly, then people will assume that all your thought processes about all of these issues are driven by an aversion to people based on their skin color, which is the purest personification of racism.
Well, it's not an aversion. I would say it's the opposite. I like my own people. My own people are familiar to me, and I think that's true across the board. I think that people seek out other people that are like themselves, and
it's very true. We really do. So, like, if they actually, I feel like in a way where they did this thing where, like, I mean, just based on like my experiences, social experiences, right? Like when I used to go like clubbing a lot or whatever back in the day. Like, you can tell which groups were with what, right? I saw an Asian group, I saw a white group, or even, like, high school, right? You can even go back to, like, high school, colleges. The group you would always go with is with your own race. That is definitely a fact.
Every other group does this, whether it's blacks, Hispanics, Asians. I get a lot of attacks when I talk about that I'm against interracial marriage. And what's funny is that every other group is against interracial or interethnic marriage. Jews,
but you're the
Chinese,
product of an
Hispanics.
interracial marriage.
It's true. Chinese people and Taiwanese people are very like against interracial marriage for the most part. They always like, oh, only marry the ones like from your blood, or oh, sorry, not your blood, but like in terms of like, oh, marry people only in your own race. It's true.
Yeah, I mean that's debatable.
Not
Let's
really.
say for the sake of
Not
argument,
really.
sure.
No, you're the product of an interracial marriage, and your father is part Mexican.
It's true.
You're literally,
That's
you're
true.
literally the very person you've just told me you want to avoid.
What race is Hispanic? Is that a race?
Well, what do you think it is?
I'm asking you. What race is Hispanic?
Hispanic. Of course, it's a race. It's called Hispanic.
It's a mix between two races. It's a mix between indigenous Americans
It's not
and
white,
Europeans.
though, is it? It's not white.
That's true. I didn't know that. Actually, Hispanic. I always just thought Hispanic was Spanish or Mexican, to be honest. So I didn't know that.
Well, you're apparently you're more of a racial purist than me. You got like
Not
a
really. You just keep saying you only want to live in a
white.
white neighborhood, but you're literally from a mixed race background yourself. You've literally
But not
got
black, though,
Mexican
right?
Blood.
I know, and I live in a non-white neighborhood too. I'm trying to get out of here, though. But I'm trying to get out.
I'm trying to get out.
Do you have any
Wait.
non-white? Do you have any non-white friends?
Wait, doesn't he have money to get out though?
Most of my friends are non-white. Most of my
I'm
friends
trying
are
to get out of here.
And non-white people love my show because they
are
respect
black?
the honesty.
How many of your friends are black?
Many of them.
You know what
Like at
Nick
least
should
a
do?
dozen.
Wow.
You know what Nick should do? He should actually pull out his statistics numbers on like how many like people watch him, because you can actually go on YouTube and find out what kind of people are actually watching your YouTube. It's kind of cool. Like you can actually find the demographic, and you can find out like which ethnicities have been watching your YouTube channel. So he should totally pull that up. I feel like that'd be really interesting to pull up, unless he already did that already.
Ye being one
Yeah.
who you know, Sneeko being
Kanye.
another who you also
Sneeko.
know.
So how do they feel when you
Kanye
say
West.
you just want to be away from any black people? Walk away from them.
Well, you know what Ye told me? I'll tell you
Oh.
verbatim what he said. That it doesn't come from a place of, and you use the word aversion. That's the first thing.
So
I'll
I
actually
think in
do.
that one, so what Kanye, I think I saw a clip of it, but Kanye basically said, we basically said, basically long story short, he said N words would be N words. Basically, what he was saying, it was pretty funny.
Dispute.
Okay.
It's not an aversion on the basis of skin color, because that would seem to suggest it's like a stubborn, irrational bigotry. I don't
I
consider
think you can
myself
find
a
that.
bigot. I
Wait,
consider
I
myself
thought the
a
show was uncensored. That's not uncensored. Well, like, wait, if he just cut that part out, so that means it's censored, because I thought the show was uncensored. Huh.
racial
I
realist.
just thought about that.
I'm realistic about how the races are, and I speak provocatively about it. And I speak provocatively about our tribalistic instincts and tendencies as humans.
It kind of makes me want to watch the Andrew
and
Tate
I'm
one
not a
now.
liberal ideologue that says that.
Oh,
over time,
Myron.
with
Oh,
enough
Myron
education,
needs to get on
we're
there.
all going to see this great brotherhood where we're colorblind and everybody's the same. You know, I don't think that's ever going away. I think that race is real. It's not just skin deep. It matters to us and it matters to each other. And black people know that, and Hispanics know that, and Asians know that. And people like me that have partial Mexican ancestry, we know that too. And I think on that basis, we can have mutual respect and understanding, not aversion based on skin color.
The reason I use the word aversion is you literally said that you should walk the other way if you see black people. That is an aversion to black people based on their skin color.
No, that's called economy of information. That's economy of information. That's safety. And I said in the same monologue, if you watch it, it's like, I feel sorry. The problem is you clip the 10 seconds. I don't know if you watched the whole show, but in that monologue, I said, most black people are not violent or criminals. I said, and it's unfortunate that we're going to offend them when we turn and walk the other way. I said, but the problem is we don't know. We can't tell. And someone like
To be fair though, like again, it goes back to like it's not like I would see like a random black person, like, oh my god, I'm scared, right? I think it's more than that. I think it's how they look, right? Now again, you can get two, like this example, you find two black people, right? One looks like just a college student who, let's say example, who's bald, has glasses, has a backpack, well dressed, right? Or I'll just say this: a well dressed black guy versus I don't know, not well dressed, right? You're gonna probably go towards the person who's well dressed than rather the, not so well dressed, right? I think that's the example I would give.
Rena Zarutska, she sat down in front of a black man.
Yeah, that guy looks. If you watch the video, that guy looks sketchy. Like, I would have been like, yeah, I'm not sitting next to this guy. That guy looks sketchy. Now the person on the other side will look more safe.
Headphones in and wasn't paying attention because she was being a good liberal and said, I'm not uncomfortable by this. I'm progressive.
She was a liberal,
Then she
yes.
got stabbed in the neck. And I said, it's unfortunate that you would have to sit behind the black man to be safe. And if he's not violent or schizophrenic, he might
would
be
be near that
offended by
person.
that. I said, but I would rather offend him than die.
How many deranged white men have committed?
See,
atrocious?
and he's already explained himself, saying like, I would rather be called racist, be safe. But he's not actually saying he's racist. He's just saying that I would rather have that, the case to be, but then I'd rather be safe, right? I think that's what he's saying.
In the last 10 years in America.
I don't think Pierce is listening on that.
Unfortunately, far fewer.
But how
far
many?
fewer.
How many? Do you know how many?
You have a research team. You pull
No,
it
no.
up.
I mean,
don't have
you're
it in
very
front of
big
me.
on. You're obviously extremely exercised.
have
by
your
that
research
one
team.
story, which was horrific for the record, absolutely horrific, and should never have happened.
And it's
The
happening a
person
lot if you
who
look on X.
perpetrated that evil act had a string of previous offences and should have been picked up more, and it should have been amplified more. I completely concur with all of that. But I just suspect you have no idea how many white people have committed similar crimes, do you?
No, because I know
They're
it's
all on
far
Netflix.
fewer from
Okay.
experience.
Okay.
Because it's like you said. Well, and hang on, and I would add to that, Irina Zarutska wasn't the first one. That was also after Austin Metcalf was killed in Texas.
Sure.
After
But
Carmelo
how many
Anthony
times has it
stabbed
been
him in the
Carmelo
neck.
Anthony.
perpetrated by white
Yep.
people?
Well, hang on, let me finish my point.
But you're
And then not
implying that
only
white
did-
people don't do this. And my point to you, Nick
Okay.
Fuentes, is of
Yeah.
course,
Oh, I never said white people don't do it.
deranged white people commit heinous acts. But you don't either
No
know.
disagreement.
You neither know nor care, or maybe both. Maybe you do know and don't care. You only seem to be focused on black people who commit crimes. And again, if you hadn't prefaced the whole debate about racism by openly conceding you are a racist, I could read other connotations into what you've been saying. But once you've said, I'm a racist, and then you only talk about black crime, I think people can watch this and they can say, yeah, he is. He's a racist. And everything that he says
And
about
you know what? And you know what? If people say he's a racist, Nick is not going to care. I'm actually like the same way, actually. Like, someone calls me a racist, I don't give a fuck.
is driven through the prism of being a racist.
Because we're so sick of the idea of being called racist, it has no effect, and we're just sick of how life is right now. So yeah,
according to their skin color.
I don't blame him.
Well, it's funny because it's quite on the contrary. And I said this in a similar monologue. The problem is not that I wake up and I walk down the street and I see someone that doesn't look like me and it makes me angry. The problem is there's a pattern of behavior, which we've all seen. Blacks in America have become narcissistic, and they become narcissistic because they've been told they're victims of racism. They're victims of slavery. They've been told, really, there's no accountability.
And what's also really annoying is the Asians that back this shit up. They're just as annoying. Like, I saw this video today. I'll probably play it later. But then this lady was freaking out. I was like, yeah, you're deporting. And it was like this Asian lady. I was like, oh my god, this fucking lady is so annoying. And I'm just like, dude, we need to put like an illegal immigrant in front of her and let her know how she feels, right? I bet you she would change her mind in a heartbeat.
If they're rude.
And because the issue is that these people who don't have to deal with this everyday life. I bet you Piers Morgan doesn't deal with any shit because he probably lives in a really nice house. He doesn't have to deal with this crap, And again, I'm sure he's very against the whole illegal immigration, which he was. But I'm saying is that it's easier to sympathize with people, with criminals, if it's not happening to you, right?
Consider it if they're criminal. They are told that they have no agency for their actions. They're being told if you act in this way, it's because the white man made you that way. It's because the system's rigged against you. And so we've been
and it's very true. It's very the whole idea is they try to put that victimhood kind of thing.
Telling black people this for a generation, and now there's no rules. Now they go, and what we hate to see as decent people, not even as white people, but decent people, even black people too. What we hate to see is rudeness, obnoxiousness, inconsideration, criminality, violence. And that's that pattern of behavior that we see all over social media, on
So
the
just to
body
be clear,
cam footage,
you
on
don't
cops.
like black people who play
I don't think he said he doesn't like black people. That's not what he said.
the victim and are rude. Is that your position?
I don't like that pattern of
And
behavior.
who are
of-
narcissists?
I see where this is going.
See
Yeah,
now Pierce is twisting the words like, "Oh, you hate black people." We never say he hate black people. He's just saying there's a pattern of black people.
I'm gonna turn this around on
You're
me.
ahead of me, aren't you? Because when I said
Very
what
clever.
black friends have you got, you said
I
yay.
am kind of black,
Yay.
aren't I?
No, not that. You said,
Oh, yay
I'm not saying
also.
you. I'm just saying your choice of.
I wonder how
black
close he is
friend
with Kanye West.
Ye, who is arguably the #1 black victimhood narcissist.
I mean, I'll say this too, like, just because you're black doesn't mean you can be racist. I think everyone has a chance to be racist. So, like, I think I can see the point where it's like, oh, well, black, I can see the point where, in a way, it's like, when they say black people are racist, and they say, oh, that's not true. No, it's very true. Black people can be racist, Asians can be racist, whites can be racist, anyone can be racist.
In America. You understand the problem. So he's
Well,
your friend. He's one of the very few black people you want to be associated with, but he's the epitome of what you just said you abhor.
Kanye's crazy, but he's had a lot of good points. I'll be honest with you.
About narcissistic black people.
I disagree. I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. Because Ye, if you've ever met him in real life,
I have, yeah.
Okay, well,
Oh, 'cause
then
they
you
had a
know.
debate.
He's nothing but polite, considerate.
I think Kanye West crashed out on his show.
Actually, he was very rude to me the last 2 times I interviewed him. He's
Well,
a
but-
supreme. He's a
He
supreme
crashed
narcissist,
out.
and he's
Well,
also.
you keep interrupting me. You're very rude. Are you black?
I
Because you're being very
apologize.
rude by
I
interrupting me right
apologize
now.
to you.
I'm giving you a hard time, but
It's
look,
okay,
I
you're
do
not
want to
giving me a
finish
hard
my
time.
point. I do want to finish my point about Ye. He is a guy who, when I was with him, wanted to make sure that everybody was heard. Everybody felt included. He's actually a very soft-spoken guy, very polite, and by the way, not violent. When you look at all the rappers that are in the music game, many of them, especially from Chicago, drill rap, they're talking about killing people, shooting people, they gangbang. He notably, if you know about him, he got his start because he was a nerd. He wore a backpack and a polo, and he wasn't a gangbanger.
That's true, and that was a very good album, by the way.
He rapped about his feelings and girls and his dreams and his ambitions. So, no, and by the way, he would tell me all the time, he doesn't even feel black. They make him feel not black because he doesn't do those things, because he's soft-spoken, because he's artistic, because he's a bit of a nerd or likes fashion. So I would disagree. He's actually not like that at all.
Okay.
Well, we're talking
He's also a Hitler-loving anti-Semite, and we're going to take a little commercial break here.
Oh,
and
here
we're
we
going to
go.
come back and talk about anti-Semitism.
You
and
see how I
your
like him?
Views about Jewish people, and indeed what Ye said about the same subject matter.
That's crazy.
Angel Studios are back with.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. That's pretty insane. That's pretty crazy stuff right there. That's pretty good so far. I really like it. I really like it right now. I would just put that as part 1, so I'll put that as my YouTube for part 1 later.